Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, this is a place where we slow down, relax, and take a peaceful walk through forgotten history. Tonight, we're stepping into the shoes of a medieval peasant. No kings, no knights, just ordinary people living quiet lives in the Middle Ages. So find a comfy spot, maybe grab a blanket, and let's travel back to a simpler time. This is color in the Middle Ages. Let's begin. Every society harbors unique and intriguing perspectives on colors, what they symbolize, which ones are deemed more aesthetically pleasing, and which should be avoided. French historian Michel Pastoureau has unearthed fascinating insights into the medieval period's relationship with color. Here are 7 vivid facts about color in the Middle Ages based on his research. The Middle Color. Medieval scholars inherited the idea from ancient times that there were 7 primary colors: white, yellow, red, green, blue, purple, and black. Green occupied a central position, symbolically balanced between the extremes of white and black. It was also regarded as a soothing color. Scribes often kept emeralds and other green objects nearby to rest their eyes. The poet Baudry de Bougainville even suggested writing on green tablets instead of white or black ones for this reason. White versus red. Michel Pastoureau writes that the true medieval opposite for white was not so much black as red. This can be seen in the way Europeans adapted chess. When the game was adopted in Europe, the pieces and chessboard were painted in white and red, contrasting with the black and red sets common in India and the Middle East. It was only towards the end of the Middle Ages that the white versus black dichotomy became more favored. A key factor in this shift was the advent of printing, where black ink was used on white paper, reinforcing the perception of these colors as natural opposites. Knightly colors. Arthurian romances, one of the most popular forms of literature in the High Middle Ages, frequently employed color symbolism, particularly in the depiction of knights. Pastoureau notes that these narratives used colors to convey deeper meanings and character traits. He writes, the color code was recurrent and meaningful. A black knight was almost a character of primary importance. Tristan, Lancelot. He was generally motivated by good intentions and prepared to demonstrate his valor, especially by jousting or tournament. A red knight, on the other hand, was often hostile to the hero. This was a perfidious or evil knight, sometimes the devil's envoy, or a mysterious being from the other world. Less prominent, a white knight was generally viewed as good. This was an older figure, a friend of protector or the hero, to who he gave wise counsel. Recently dubbed, whose audacious or insolent behavior was going to cause great disorder. He could be good or bad. Finally, yellow or gold knights were rare and blue knights non-existent. Black versus white monks during the early Middle Ages. Monastic rules stipulated that monks should not concern themselves with the color of their clothing. However, over the centuries, their attire became increasingly darker. The Cluniacs, one of the most influential monastic communities, believed that black was the appropriate color for one's habit. This perspective faced backlash in the 12th century when the Cistercians adopted a white habit. The debate over monastic colors was intense among the leaders of these orders. Peter, the venerable abbot of Cluny, argued that black represented humility and renunciation, while white symbolized pride and was suitable for holidays and resurrection. In contrast, Bernard of Clairvaux, abbot of Clairvaux, claimed that white stood for purity, innocence, and virtue, whereas black symbolized death and sin, even likening it to the devil's appearance. The color of Islam green is widely associated with Islam, but this association only developed in the 12th century. The Quran mentions green 8 times, always positively, as a color representing vegetation, spring, and paradise. The Prophet Muhammad favored green garments, including a green turban. While green was linked to Muhammad's descendants, different colors were associated with the ruling Islamic dynasties: white for the Umayyads, black for the Abbasids, and red for the Almohads. Pasturo believes that green became a unifying color for Muslims in the 1100s. He writes, "Its symbolism is associated with that of paradise, happiness, riches, water, the sky, and hope." Green became the sacred color. Consequently, many medieval copies of the Quran had green bindings or covers, a tradition that continues today. Religious dignitaries often wear green, whereas green gradually disappeared from carpets to avoid trampling on such a venerable color. The Blue Revolution. Michel Pasteur's book on blue begins by highlighting the neglect this color faced among the ancient Greeks and Romans, who rarely wrote about it or used it. He even explores the intriguing question of whether ancient peoples could perceive blue at all. This neglect persisted through the early Middle Ages until the 12th century. Then suddenly, writes Pasteuro, in just a few decades, everything changes. Blue is discovered and attains a prominent place in painting, heraldry, and clothing. The first significant shift in the Blue Revolution was the use of blue to represent the clothing of the Virgin Mary. The scene of Mary mourning Jesus' crucifixion was popular in the Middle Ages, and once artists began depicting her cloak in vibrant blue, it quickly became the standard. Additionally, artists, especially those working in stained glass, overcame technical limitations in creating blues, allowing the color to be used in various mediums and clothing. Pasteuro notes that by the 13th century, monarchs such as France's Louis IX and England's Henry III began wearing blue, leading it to become the color of medieval royalty. The decline of yellow initially benefited from its resemblance to gold, which bolstered its reputation. Many medieval heraldic symbols incorporated yellow, and possessing blonde hair was considered highly fashionable. However, in the later Middle Ages, yellow began to acquire negative associations, including envy and heresy. Judas, the apostle who betrayed Jesus, was increasingly depicted wearing yellow clothing. The Catholic Church convicted the Czech reformer Jan Hus of heresy in 1415. They dressed him in a yellow robe for his execution. Yellow also became associated with Jews, and as European Christians enforced clothing regulations on Jewish communities, yellow was often, though not always, included. By the early modern period, yellow fell out of favor, perceived as gaudy and unpopular.